The world is watching Afghanistan from the comforts of their homes as the Taliban now rule the country. Disturbing visuals of Afghans trying to flee their country, some handing over their children to strangers, all in a bid for survival. Evacuations are ongoing, with the US trying to get its allies out before August 31st. Will this even be possible? Welcome to WION World is One. My name is Priyanka Sharma and this is our special weekly broadcast of the WION-VOA Co-production. Starting with Afghanistan, of course, the race to evacuate tens of thousands of Americans and Afghans from the country is intensifying as prospects are uncertain for removing any Afghan allies before the deadline of August 31st. Voice of America's Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb has the latest. Take a look.
Hundreds more U.S. troops arrived at Kabul's international airport to help evacuate American and Afghan citizens.
This is personal, and we're going to get them out. We've already evacuated approximately 5,000 people, and we intend to increase it.
But outside the airport, evidence the evacuation now hinges on Taliban cooperation, with reports of militants blocking the passage of the Americans and Afghans the U.S. has vowed to save. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin told reporters U.S. troops would stay focused on protecting the airfield. Chaos and panic on Monday halted air traffic there for hours and led to multiple deaths.
I don't have the capability to go out and extend operations currently into Kabul.
Kabul fell quickly Sunday as ousted Afghan President Ashraf Ghani fled the country. He spoke to the Afghan people via Facebook Wednesday.
I was forced to leave Kabul to prevent bloodshed and destruction of Kabul.
The U.S. vowed to complete its troop withdrawal by August 31st, but that may not be enough time to evacuate everyone at risk.
The fact of the matter is we are going to do as much as we can for as long as we can. If the window is 2 weeks, we will make the most of that window. If the window is slightly longer, we will make the most of that window.
And in a candid interview with ABC News' George Stephanopoulos Wednesday, President Joe Biden gave little hope for rescuing Afghans beyond the end of the month.
No, Americans should understand that we're going to try to get it done before August 31st.
But if we don't, the troops will stay.
If we don't, we'll determine at the time who's left.
And
if there are American forces, if there's American citizens left, we're going to stay till we get them all out.
A message certain to disturb the thousands of at-risk Afghans yet to be evacuated and their American allies desperate to get them out. Carla Babb, VOA News, The Pentagon.
For a better understanding of the U.S. strategy in Afghanistan, we're now joined by Voice of America's correspondent Amy Hybels from Washington. Amy, welcome to this special broadcast. Now, U.S. President Joe Biden is being criticized for not anticipating the speed of the Taliban takeover and the chaos that has erupted at the airport in the aftermath. How has he responded?
Well, Priyanka, U.S. President Joe Biden delivered an address to the nation from the White House on Monday afternoon. Of course, that was after the Taliban takeover that caused that rush on the airport, those images that we're now all witnessing. Now, in his speech, he talked a lot about his reasons for the withdrawal. But what he's being criticized for right now is how this exit plan is unfolding in real time. Now, on Monday, President Biden described scenes in Afghanistan as, quote, gut-wrenching, while defending his decision to withdraw American troops. He also said, quote, the truth is this did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated. Then in an exclusive interview with American network ABC News that aired on Wednesday, Mr. Biden said the idea that somehow there's a way to have gotten out without chaos ensuing, I don't know how that happened. So he was insinuating that chaos was inevitable in this situation. Now, as to why the administration didn't begin withdrawing those Afghans that worked with American troops much sooner, Mr. Biden said some didn't want to leave earlier, that they were hopeful for their country, and he also said that the Afghan government and its supporters discouraged them from organizing a mass exodus. However, even members of his own political party, fellow Democrats, have called for evacuations to start months ago to try to get those translators out of the country. We're also learning this morning that U.S. officials have told the Associated Press that American diplomats had formally urged weeks ago that the Biden administration ramp up evacuation efforts. Now, Republican members of the U.S. Congress, of course, are seizing on this opportunity to criticize the president. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell called the events in Afghanistan, quote, an unmitigated disaster. He said, simply the fact that President Trump announced we were going to leave in May didn't mean President Biden had to do that. Of course, he's referring to the previous administration and their plans. They signed an agreement with the Taliban and agreed to get out by May 1st of this year. So that's what he's referring to right there.
All right, Amy, in regard to the U.S. evacuation process that is currently taking place, what do we know about the number of people getting out and the fate of those Afghans who worked with the Americans over the past nearly 20 years?
Well, sure. We have learned that the Pentagon is hoping to ramp up evacuations. Yesterday, they told reporters that they're in a position, they have the capacity to remove 5,000 to 9,000 people a day. The difficulty, of course, as you saw on Carla Babb's reporting, is in getting people actually to the airport. Even people that have the necessary paperwork are having a difficult time getting to where they need to be in order to be able to leave the country. Now, we've all seen the chaotic scenes outside the airport, which stand in contrast to the airfield itself, which appears orderly and calm in this video. Now, on Thursday, Pentagon officials told reporters that 7,000 evacuees have been airlifted since Saturday, but there are still thousands of Americans and tens of thousands of Afghans still waiting to try to get out. Now, the pace did pick up overnight. We've learned that defense officials say about 5,700 people, including about 250 Americans, were flown out of Kabul during the overnight hours. And while President Biden did not rule out the possibility of continuing evacuations past August 31st in that ABC News interview that he did, the fate of the remaining Afghans is what remains unclear at this point. As you can imagine, Priyanka, this is weighing heavily on the hearts and minds of veterans right here in the U.S. who work closely with their colleagues. Some have even taken it upon themselves to work the phones or to work their online social media to try to connect with people in Kabul, with the U.S. military, to try to get their comrades out. That's something that they're very worried about at this time. Now, remember, in a White House address that was delivered back on July 8th, President Biden said, "There is a home for you in the United States if you so choose, and we will stand with you just as you stood with us." That's something that these veterans are very, very concerned about at this hour, and understandably so.
Amy, my final question on this topic. What has the international reaction been to the U.S. pullout, particularly in reaction and regard to the regional powers?
Well, sure. It's interesting to note that in his address to the nation on Monday from the White House, from the East Room of the White House, President Biden specifically said that China and Russia would love nothing more than the United States to continue to funnel billions of dollars in resources and attention into stabilizing Afghanistan indefinitely. So these two countries were obviously on his mind when he made this speech. Now, we've learned that U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and his counterpart did talk on Monday. The two discussed the security situation in Afghanistan and the two countries' efforts to bring their citizens to safety. China says it keeps in contact with the Taliban. That's seen as an indication that China may be laying the groundwork to endorse the Taliban as Afghanistan's legitimate government. Remember, China's foreign minister actually met with the Taliban's political chief back on July 28th. And while Russia's foreign minister said Moscow was in no rush to recognize the Taliban as the new rulers of Afghanistan, he said there were encouraging signals of their readiness to let other political forces join the government and allow girls into schools. Unlike many other countries, Russia has said it would not evacuate its embassy in Kabul, and its ambassador met with the Taliban in what was described as constructive talks after the Taliban took over the capital. Now, we expect to learn much more on the situation from the U.S. government standpoint this afternoon. U.S. President Joe Biden is expected to make additional remarks from the White House this afternoon, and as you might imagine, VOA will continue to follow this very, very closely.
Absolutely, Amy, as will WION World is one. Stay with us on this special broadcast. We want to come back to you to weigh in on another story coming from the United States. Let's now shift our focus to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Biden administration announced booster shots on Wednesday for Americans who have been fully vaccinated against the infections. Voice of America's Isha Sarai has more details in this next report. Take a look.
As just over half the American population has been vaccinated, the Biden administration announced Wednesday that it would provide booster shots for Americans 8 months after their second vaccine.
8 months after your second shot, get a booster shot. These booster shots are free. We'll be able to get the booster shots at any one of approximately 80,000 vaccination locations nationwide. It will be easy.
Top scientists in the U.S. have said that vaccines have proven effective against even the Delta variant.
Even though this new data affirms that vaccine protection remains high against the worst outcomes of COVID, we are concerned that this pattern of decline we are seeing will continue in the months ahead, which could lead to reduced protection against severe disease, hospitalization, and death.
But the decision to offer booster shots in the U.S. has drawn criticism from public health organizations, which note that much of the world is still struggling to get a first dose of the vaccine.
The decision to push booster shots in the United States is just one more step that our government is taking that's going to widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots. And this isn't just a moral stain on wealthy nations. It's really going to prolong the pandemic for everyone.
Biden responded to this criticism by noting the number of vaccines the U.S. has donated to other countries.
No, there's some world leaders who say America shouldn't get a third shot until other countries got their first shot. I disagree. We can take care of America and help the world at the same time. In June and July, America administered 50 million shots here in the United States, and we donated 100 million shots to other countries.
Washington's decision comes in defiance of the World Health Organization's call for a moratorium on booster shot discussion until more of the global population is vaccinated. Isha Sarai, VOA News.
For more updates about the COVID-19 situation in America, we have Amy Hybels from Washington still with us on this broadcast. Now, Amy, thanks for staying with us. Speaking about the COVID-19 crisis in America, what additional steps is the Biden administration taking to address a surge in coronavirus cases, especially the more contagious Delta variant?
Well, this week, U.S. President Joe Biden took the bold step of requiring all nursing home staff in the entire country to be vaccinated. Otherwise, the facilities that they work for could risk losing some of their federal funding. Keep in mind, here in the U.S., nursing homes in this country were devastated during the first wave of the COVID virus. There were many, many deaths reported when it first hit our country. Now, President Biden has also ordered his education secretary to explore possible legal action against states that have blocked school mask mandates meant to protect students against the COVID-19, especially with this Delta variant that is prevalent in the U.S. right now. In doing so, what he's really doing is signaling his willingness to take on Republican governors in states like Florida and Texas, where they have forbidden school districts from enacting mask mandates. As you can imagine, this is a very fiery topic right now in the U.S. A lot of school districts are frustrated because they want to enact these policies, but they're told by their state governors that they can't do so. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Obviously, it's a huge concern with kids back in the classrooms, many on their way to the classrooms, returning in the next 2 weeks if they're not already back in school. And remember, here in the U.S., children under the age of 12 are not allowed to be vaccinated, even if older students and teachers can be. So something we're closely watching here in the U.S. at this time.
Amy, thank you so much for joining us on this special broadcast, and thank you for all those inputs.